I spent months planning this trip. I knew exactly where I wanted to go, the places I had to see. And this was the one spot I cared about the most. I was minutes away, but I never made it. I drove right past it. And I know I'll probably never be back. The rental car hummed steadily along, a low vibration that felt more present than the conversation we weren't having. The silence was uncompanionable, not the kind you share when you've been married long enough to appreciate that words aren't always necessary. No, this was silence weaponized, its sharp edges pressing into the air between us. The fight, I won't go into details, but it was all my fault, had hollowed out the trip. We'd been driving around the Icelandic coastline, where cliffs met restless water, looking for some now long forgotten landmark. My wife had been navigating, but we'd missed the turnoff. Or maybe she stopped caring to direct me. I hadn't exactly been making it easy. The GPS was recalculating, but I wasn't driving toward anything specific anymore. Just heading back toward the highway, towards Reykjavik, towards home. It felt like the right thing to do. Or, at least, the easiest thing. The joy of the journey had been stripped away, like peeling paint on an old shipwreck. Then, I saw it. The pier jutted out into the ocean like a challenge to nature itself. Impossibly long. Maybe a kilometre, maybe more. Its support beams, massive and weathered, plunged into the water like the legs of some ancient colossus. Maybe 50 metres high? 60? The sheer scale of it stunned me. It seemed too big, too ambitious, too human. It was a relic from a time when people built things like this because they believed they could conquer anything. I slowed the car, and my eyes followed the line of the pier as it stretched into the grey horizon. In that instant, something clicked. I remembered this place. Months ago, at work, I'd been on Google Maps, clicking and scrolling during lunch breaks or whenever I was pretending to be busy. I'd plotted our route across Iceland, marking waterfalls and black sand beaches, geysers and glaciers, but this pier, this was the one, the place I had been most excited to see. Back then, it had felt like the embodiment of something I couldn't quite name, a fusion of abandonment and resilience. It wasn't just a tourist stop. It was a forgotten monument. Once used by whaling ships, it now stood nearly deserted, still functioning in some limited capacity, but largely ignored. I'd imagined walking along its length, feeling the weight of history beneath my feet. The salt air, the creak of wood, the sense of standing on the precipice of something vast and unknowable. And here I was, only 5 minutes away, if that. I slowed the car further, one hand gripping the wheel, the other hovering near the indicator. A narrow road branched off toward the pier, winding down towards what looked like a small parking area. I imagined turning onto it, imagined explaining to my wife why we had to go. But the idea evaporated as quickly as it had formed. She stared out the window, jaw tight, arms crossed. The fight, the one I caused, was still too fresh. Suggesting a new detour now would be like striking a match next to an open gas line. It didn't matter how badly I wanted to go. I knew I couldn't, not without making things worse. And yet, I thought about how long it had taken to get here. Not just the physical distance, but the planning, the anticipation, the mental energy spent building this moment in my head. How, back at work, I kept the pier open in another browser tab, switching to it whenever spreadsheets or emails bored me beyond endurance. It had become a kind of talisman, something to look forward to when my days felt as monotonous as the office walls. And now I was here, 5 minutes away, so close I could almost feel the wind whipping off the water. But I wasn't going. I tightened my grip on the wheel and drove on, the pier shrinking in the rearview mirror until it disappeared entirely. The rest of the drive was unremarkable. The cliff still rose and fell. The ocean still churned. My wife didn't speak, and neither did I. It was as if the fight had drained not just our words, but the colour from the world around us. Later, back at home, I thought about the pier. Not just the pier itself, but what it represented. I'd ruined my chance to see it. Not because of time or money or any of the usual reasons people miss out on things, but because of my own actions. I could have gone. I should have gone. But I didn't. And now, I probably never will. That's the thing about life. Some doors stay open, swinging gently in the breeze, but most don't. They close behind you with a dull, final thud, and you don't always get to decide which ones. I find myself back at work, staring at Google Maps, scrolling through the same coastline, looking for the pier. But it's just not the same. It's just pixels now, a ghost of something real. Sometimes the things we imagine are more permanent than the things we live. And sometimes the closest you'll ever get to a place is sitting at your desk, planning for a future you didn't realize you'd already let slip away. If this one held your attention, the next one might too. Just keep going and see where it leads.